My teacher failed me again and again, and I thought it was because he hated me, but I was wrong. He just wanted to date my mom. My teacher failed me again and again, and I convinced myself it was because he just didn't like me. That happens sometimes. A teacher chooses favorites, and you're not one of them. But no matter how much harder I worked, it didn't change. I was doing fine in my other classes. In history, it was like my effort didn't exist. Mr. Carter taught history. He wasn't the worst teacher in school, but he wasn't the kind you admired either. Tall, neat shirts, sleeves rolled twice, pen tapping against his gradebook. He always looked precise. On the first day, he said he wanted clarity and evidence. I thought that was fair until I realized his standards didn't apply equally. My first essay came back with a C-. Underdeveloped, he'd written. I asked what I'd missed, and he said, revisit the rubric. Another student had a messy paper with fewer references than mine, yet she got a B+. I told myself maybe I hadn't explained enough. For the second essay, I cut sentences, added dates, followed every rule. That one got a D+. Sophomoric. Meanwhile, a classmate's paper with a clear misquote earned good thinking. It didn't add up. I started showing up early, sitting in the front, asking direct questions. But whenever I asked for examples, he'd say, I can't do your thinking for you. When I asked about rewriting, he said, we don't repeat the past, we learn from it. Clever, but useless. At home, I didn't tell my mom everything. She works long hours at a dental clinic and comes home exhausted. When she asked, how's history? I just said, challenging. That's our code for, not good, but I'm trying. Still, she noticed my late nights with books and my frustration at the table. She said, ask your teacher directly. Most people want to help if you let them. I told her I had. I didn't tell her how his replies made me feel invisible. Tests and quizzes didn't go better. In study groups, I answered quickly, but in class he brushed off the same answers. Once, I gave the exact example from the reading about labor strikes. He called it surface level. A minute later, another student rephrased it and he said, exactly. That moment stayed in my head longer than it should have. It got so I doubted myself even before handing work in. I tried writing like I thought he wanted, simple, repetitive. That paper got a C, you're getting there. Then I tried writing with real analysis again. That one got a D, overreaching. I felt like I was chasing a moving target. Friends told me to let it go. Some teachers are just like that. One said, you'll survive. But surviving isn't the same as being treated fairly. And every time my grade dropped lower, it weighed heavier. The first parent-teacher meeting was called on a Thursday. He emailed my mom directly, CC'd me, and wrote, I'd like to discuss concerns about Anna's performance and engagement. His wording felt formal, detached, like the problem was obvious. My mom agreed to Monday after school. She told me, we'll listen and make a plan. She always tries to stay calm and professional, even when I'm upset. I wrote down questions. What does specificity mean? Can I see examples of strong work? How can I improve in a way that shows up in the grade? That Monday, she was already in the classroom when I arrived. He shook her hand, said her name warmly, then looked at me and said, thanks for coming. His desk was spotless, blinds half open, the kind of setting where you expect things to be solved. Instead, he repeated phrases I'd already heard: rigor, expectations, growth mindset. He didn't show examples, just spoke in general terms. My mom asked if I could revise essays. He said, if we let students rewrite, they wait for feedback to do the thinking they should have done the first time. She nodded politely, but I could tell she was disappointed. Then came a small moment I couldn't shake. He told her, I appreciate how engaged you are. It's rare to have a parent partner like this. It wasn't inappropriate, just a little too warm. My mom smiled automatically, the way you do in professional settings. I told myself not to read into it. We left with a vague plan. I'd attend office hours, he'd look for growth. On the way to the car, my mom asked, how do you feel? I said, like I brought questions and he gave me slogans. She smiled tiredly and said, we'll keep at it. If nothing changes, we'll escalate. That word, escalate, gave me a little relief. At least she saw it too. But nothing changed. Office hours gave me one-line replies. Papers came back with the same marks. And then, another email landed in my mom's inbox from him. I'd like to schedule another meeting to review progress. I wondered what progress he thought we'd made. The second meeting came faster than I expected. Mr. Carter emailed my mom again with 2 time slots, like it was a routine checkup. She chose Thursday after school. She reminded me the night before, we'll stay calm, just talk about progress. I nodded, though in my head I thought, what progress? I brought my notes again, but I could tell she wasn't as optimistic this time. When we sat in his classroom, the tone felt different. He greeted my mom first, shook her hand, and complimented her necklace. That's a lovely piece. Family heirloom? She smiled politely and said, just something I bought years ago. I noticed how he looked at her longer than necessary. The conversation about my grades went the same way. Vague comments about analysis, lack of precision. He said, he's bright, but he doesn't apply himself consistently. I sat there biting my tongue, because I had been applying myself. My mom asked again about specific examples. He avoided specifics again. Instead, he leaned into broad statements. With the right support at home, I think he can make significant improvement. He looked directly at her when he said it. After the meeting, my mom said little in the car. She just exhaled and said, we'll keep pushing. I agreed, but I couldn't shake the way he'd complimented her. It didn't sound professional. It sounded personal. A week later, he started sending emails to my mom directly, not always CCing me. She showed me one, saying, Mr. Carter wanted to check in. It read, "I'm concerned about his focus. Could we schedule another meeting soon? Also, thank you for being such an involved parent. It makes my job easier." My mom brushed it off, but I noticed the flattery. Things escalated slowly. He started calling on me in class more often, but not to give me a chance to catch me out. If I hesitated even a second, he'd cut me off. Meanwhile, he praised students who barely tried. My friends started to notice. "Dude, why's he always on your case?" one asked. I shrugged, but inside I knew he wasn't grading me, he was using me. The tension hit a peak the day I came home from school and saw something that stopped me cold. Mr. Carter's car was in our driveway. My stomach flipped. I walked inside, and there he was, sitting at our kitchen table, drinking coffee with my mom. He smiled like nothing was strange. "Hey there," he said. "Your mom and I were just talking about your assignments." My mom looked a little embarrassed, like she knew it was awkward, but she said, "Mr. Carter was kind enough to stop by on his way home." I mumbled hello and went straight to my room. My hands shook as I dropped my backpack. My teacher, in my house, drinking coffee with my mom. That night I asked her, "Why was he here?" She said, "He wanted to discuss your grades in person. He was in the neighborhood." Her tone was casual, but I didn't buy it. Teachers don't just drop by uninvited. Over the next couple of weeks, it happened again. Once, he came by with papers in hand, saying he wanted to explain in detail. Another time, he dropped off some resources, just a few photocopied articles I could have easily found online. Each time, my mom seemed a little more uncomfortable, but she stayed polite. The real turning point came when I overheard them laughing in the kitchen one evening. I couldn't make out the words, just the tone. Friendly. Too friendly. My mom's laugh was soft, awkward, like she didn't know how to shut it down. My chest burned. This wasn't about my grades anymore. This was about her. That was the night I realized he wasn't failing me because of my work. He was failing me because it gave him an excuse to keep showing up at our house. And I knew I'd have to find a way to prove it. The visits didn't stop. If anything, they became more casual, like Mr. Carter believed he belonged. Sometimes he'd bring a folder, sometimes nothing at all. "Just checking in," he'd say, as though my mom had invited him. She never had. She'd offer coffee out of politeness, the way she would to anyone who stepped into our kitchen. He always accepted. I started timing my afternoons around him, because I hated the idea of walking in and seeing his car in our driveway. Still, I couldn't avoid it forever. One Friday, I came home early from study group, and there it was again, his silver car, parked neatly by the curb. I walked inside and froze. He wasn't sitting at the table with papers this time. He was leaning against the counter, holding a mug, laughing at something my mom had said. His tie was loosened, sleeves rolled. It didn't look like a teacher talking to a parent. It looked like a man trying to flirt. When he saw me, his smile faltered. "Hey," he said quickly, like he'd been caught doing something small but wrong. "We were just talking about how you've been improving." I didn't answer. My mom's expression was careful, like she knew how it looked but didn't want to admit it. "Mr. Carter was just dropping off some resources," she explained, holding up a thin packet of photocopied articles. I nodded stiffly and went straight to my room. My pulse was hammering in my ears. Resources? The articles weren't new. I'd seen them online. He didn't come here for my grades. That night, I couldn't hold it in. "Mom," I said, "why is he always here?" She sighed. "He says he's concerned about your performance. He thinks extra communication will help." I shook my head. "It's not about me. He likes you." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't be disrespectful." "I'm not. I see how he looks at you. He doesn't come to anyone else's house. He's failing me on purpose so he has an excuse." She didn't reply. She pressed her lips together and turned back to the sink. I could tell she didn't want to believe me, maybe because it meant admitting she'd been pulled into something she never asked for. The following week, the evidence piled higher. He emailed her late in the evening, not about my essays, but about how he appreciated parents who cared. Once, I caught a glimpse of her phone buzzing on the counter. His name lit up the screen. She glanced at it, frowned, and didn't open it until later. The worst was the Sunday afternoon I heard our doorbell ring. I thought it was a neighbor. When I peeked down the hall, I saw him standing there with a plastic bag. Inside was a box of pastries from a bakery near the school. "Thought I'd bring these by," he said when she opened the door. She hesitated before stepping aside. I didn't go down. I listened from the top of the stairs. He asked about her weekend. He joked about how stressful teaching could be. Then he said, "Honestly, it's hard to be strict with your son when I'd rather be spending more time with you." I froze. There it was, the thing I'd known, said out loud. My mom's voice was quiet, nervous. "That's not appropriate, Mr. Carter." He backpedaled, tried to laugh it off. "I'm just saying, you're easy to talk to." My chest felt like it was on fire. This wasn't my imagination. It wasn't paranoia. He was crossing a line, and he didn't even care that he was in our house when he did it. When he finally left, my mom sat at the table with the untouched pastries. She rubbed her temples. She looked tired, not flattered. For the first time, she admitted it. "You might be right. He's blurring lines he shouldn't." I wanted to scream. Blurring lines? He was failing me, humiliating me, and now trying to get close to her. But I didn't scream. I just said, "So what are we going to do?" She didn't answer right away, but I could see the shift in her expression. She wasn't brushing it off anymore. She was angry too. And that was the moment I knew. The next time he slipped, we'd be ready. Mr. Carter didn't back off after that Sunday. If anything, he seemed more confident, like testing boundaries had only encouraged him. He still criticized my work harshly in class, still gave me grades that didn't match the effort I put in. win. But now, layered on top of the academic frustration, there was the constant tension of waiting to see his name pop up on my mom's phone. I started watching her reactions more closely. She'd frown when she read his messages, sometimes set her phone face down on the counter, but she didn't always answer right away. I could tell she was torn between wanting to stay polite and realizing his attention was slipping into something else. One evening, while she was in the shower, her tablet buzzed on the table. The screen lit up with his name. I stared at it, torn. It wasn't that I wanted to invade her privacy, but this wasn't just about her. It was about me too. He was failing me, deliberately, and now he was trying to pull her into something she hadn't asked for. My stomach twisted, but I tapped the notification. The email opened. The subject line read, "Following up." But it wasn't about me. The message said, "I know I've been tough on your son, but honestly it's only because I want to have more reasons to check in with you. You're one of the most caring parents I've met. If you ever want to talk, not about school, but just as two people, I'd love that." My hands shook as I read it. He'd admitted it outright. Failing me wasn't about my work. It was about her. I quickly forwarded the email to myself. Then I put the tablet back exactly how it was and walked away before she came out of the bathroom. My heart was racing, but I also felt something else I hadn't felt in weeks, certainty. It wasn't just a feeling anymore. I had proof. Later that night, I showed her. She sat at the table reading it, silent for a long time. Then she pushed the tablet away and covered her face with her hands. "I thought he was just being friendly," she whispered. "I didn't realize. It's not just friendly, Mom. He's using me. He's failing me on purpose so he has an excuse to come here." Her jaw tightened. She nodded slowly. "This isn't okay. This stops now." The next morning, she walked into the principal's office with me by her side. She didn't ask for an appointment. She just said, "I need to speak to you about Mr. Carter." The principal's eyebrows lifted when she saw the email. She read it twice, then printed it out. "This is serious," the principal said. "Thank you for bringing it in. She told us the school would handle it and that Mr. Carter would be temporarily removed from teaching duties while they investigated." By lunch period, whispers had already started. My classmates noticed he wasn't in class. A substitute teacher handed out worksheets. People asked me, "Where's Carter?" I just shrugged. Inside, I felt lighter than I had in months. That night, my mom got an official call. Mr. Carter had been suspended pending review. My grades in his class would be reassessed by another teacher. My essays would be looked at again, this time fairly. It wasn't dramatic. There wasn't a public showdown or a heated argument in the hallway. But in its quiet way, it was bigger than all of that. The balance shifted. The unfair weight on my shoulders was gone. And Mr. Carter? He never showed up at our door again. The first day without Mr. Carter felt strange. The substitute passed out worksheets, but the classroom was quieter, easier to breathe in. No pen tapping, no clipped remarks, no eyes narrowing as if waiting for me to slip. For the first time all semester, I raised my hand without second-guessing myself. The substitute nodded, thanked me for the answer, and moved on. It was simple, normal, but to me, it felt huge. Over the next week, the whispers spread. Some students said he'd taken personal leave. Others joked he'd finally burned out. A few speculated he was in trouble, but nobody knew the details. I didn't offer any. I didn't want to relive it or turn it into gossip. It wasn't a joke to me. It was relief. A few days later, my mom got another call from the principal. They had reassigned my essays to a different history teacher for review. The results came back. The same essays that had earned C's and D's under Mr. Carter now averaged out to solid B's, with comments like clear analysis and thoughtful use of sources. I wasn't perfect, but I wasn't failing either. The weight that had been dragging my GPA down vanished. When my mom told me, I just sat there stunned. I'd started to believe I really was underdeveloped, surface level, overreaching. Those words had lived in my head for months. Now another teacher was saying, "No, you're fine. You're capable." It didn't erase the frustration, but it proved what I'd felt all along. The problem hadn't been me. At home, the difference showed too. No more unexpected doorbells. No more late-night emails. No more awkward kitchen conversations. My mom seemed lighter. She admitted to me one evening, I didn't want to believe he was crossing lines. I thought I was imagining it. I should have trusted my instincts sooner. I told her it wasn't her fault. Mr. Carter had been deliberate, professional on the surface but personal underneath. She'd been caught in the middle the same way I had. We sat together at the table, eating dinner without tension hanging over us for the first time in weeks. School moved on quickly. A new permanent teacher took over the history class. She explained her grading system clearly, showed us examples of the papers, and even allowed rewrites if we wanted to improve. She wasn't easier, just fairer. And that made all the difference. My friends noticed the change in me. "You're back," one of them said after I spoke up in class again. I realized how much I'd been shrinking before, silencing myself because I expected to be dismissed. With Mr. Carter gone, I wasn't scared to try anymore. The investigation wrapped up quietly. My mom received a formal notice that Mr. Carter's conduct had been found unprofessional and that he would not be returning to the classroom. They didn't share details beyond that, but we didn't need them. We had closure. Life didn't turn into a movie ending. My grades didn't skyrocket overnight. I still had to study, still struggled with some topics, but the difference was, now the effort showed. Now when I worked hard, it mattered. Looking back, what stays with me isn't just the unfairness, it's how easily it could have been dismissed if I hadn't found proof. Without that email, I might still be stuck questioning myself, wondering if maybe I wasn't good enough. Now, when I doubt myself, I remember, Bias isn't the same as truth. Authority doesn't always mean fairness. And sometimes the people you're supposed to trust the most are the ones you have to stand up to. Mr. Carter once told me, "We don't repeat the past, we learn from it." He meant it as a clever way to shut me down. But in the end, he became his own lesson. Some people teach history. Others become history.